the kind of information that this survey is going to focus on will really matter to people, because it gives them a sense of control in a world which I must say is going to look pretty shambolic when it comes to retirement incomes outside of New Zealand and one or two other countries. And I think we just need to remind ourselves a bit about the context in which this debate will continue, because it's completely different than the last 20 or 30 years. I mean, you're seeing across the developed world the end of the debt-funded model, the end of the free lunch. Just at the time when a lot of people were looking at cashing up that free lunch. So the tension that's going to arise in these various societies where there's been high expectations built on economic growth rates which have been, and asset growth rates which have been significantly debt funded, expectations which now will certainly not be met, because there is now no one willing to fund those expectations with more and more debt. And this is going to take quite some time to work its way through. In Europe, they're spending the first 5 years of this difficult period pumping up their debt to make sure that it's going to take at least another 10 or 15 to get on top of it, and then 20 years to start getting it down. So you're talking now about a generational change in the way retirement income is perceived. Fortunately in New Zealand we have better choices than that, and I think we're going to feel more and more fortunate as we watch the implications of these changes across Europe, the US and the UK wind out. And there is no such thing as a free lunch. I've got some figures here I just thought I'd share with you around KiwiSaver, which has been a fairly successful scheme, certainly a boon to the financial services industry. So the KiwiSaver deposits have grown from 8 billion to 11 billion since April last year. That's at a time when some people were saying there was too much uncertainty about the scheme, it may be less attractive. That's clearly not the case. It's now 1.8 million members, so it's risen by I think 170,000 in the last 12 months or so. But here's some other interesting facts about it. Of the 2 billion that goes in this last 12 months, 1.2 billion of it comes from employers and employees. 950 million of it is still coming from the government. And of the total growth in funds, pretty much offset the depletion of other managed funds. So it is a better vehicle for people, and they're responding to that. But actually you only get more savings when you save more. I know that's a bit of a radical conclusion to come to, but when we're borrowing it out in the market, we just hope that fund managers are able to exceed the government's cost of borrowing, otherwise New Zealand is worse off for the KiwiSaver subsidy. And of course if funds are moving from other managed vehicles into this one, we may or may not be better off depending on the performance of the fund. The good news is that New Zealanders now know there is no free lunch, and if there's something a recommendation I would make to the financial literacy industry, it is that people are not silly. And I stand here as representing the biggest competitor of the savings industry, because when you're out there trying to make people save, we're out there telling them there's lots of free stuff. You can get pretty cheap childcare, your education is free, your tertiary education is heavily subsidised, particularly your debt. Then we'll make sure you've got significant tax credits in case you have children, and when you retire you get 67% of the average wage, and along the way your healthcare is largely free as well. So if people haven't been saving, it's because in a rational way they thought they didn't have to, and actually they've been right. Now they're scared, and fear is a good thing in the right place. One of the effects of it is that household debt as a percentage of GDP has dropped from 154%, one of the highest in the world, 3 years ago, to 144% today. And I think it's going to keep dropping. But that is the first decrease in household debt related to GDP for a long, long time. It's been rising consistently now for more than 2 decades. So Kiwis have got the message. At least that debt is a bad thing. They're not quite so convinced about saving per se yet. Our savings rate has gone from 2007 we were spending $1.11 for every dollar that we earned. Today we're spending $1 for every dollar that we earn, or 99 cents probably, as we get into the middle of this year. So that's a context where I think there's going to be an awful lot of uncertainty about retirement savings around the world. Hopefully we will be an island of calm in that sea of confusion.